So I work with Nikki Haslam and our brilliant team of designers at Pavilion Road, and I've been asked to talk a bit about the creative process and what exactly we do at the office. So to really talk about ideas and where our ideas come from and how we spin them and how we work them into our projects. And the great thing about working with Nikki really is not only is he never short of ideas, but he has incredible conviction and courage, and it's always pushing the boundary, which sort of makes, I hope, our projects come to a fruition that's quite different from anybody else. And where he really garners sort of everyone in our office, we look to every type of inspiration, movies, books, fine art, media, blogs. We look at junk on the street, music videos. Currently I'm really into looking at jewelry for furniture inspiration. And Nikki has this incredible sort of photographic memory and obviously a vast work of personal experience and work experience that he constantly draws from. And I surround myself at the office with things that really uplift and inspire me, which may or may not sort of come into actual fruition in projects, but I've got everything from the ballet to Saint-Tropez paintings to modern buildings, Elliott Maquette, beautiful Serre paintings, beautiful men, beautiful fashion, beautiful swimming pools, just things that sort of uplift me every day and may or may not sort of provide inspiration for a particular thing that we're working on. But when I get those phone calls about the AV and the crap that's going on the job site and all the problems that are going on, at least I always have something to look to remind me why I'm doing what I'm doing, which is really to make beautiful and uplifting spaces for people that hopefully change their lives. So that sort of, it's just this visual catalog that everyone contributes to, and the young people bring in brilliant things and current things that are happening in pop culture. And the way that we work at the office really in terms of pulling all those ideas together and how we work with clients is we're fortunate enough to have Nikki, who's a brilliant watercolorist, and we do hope to publish these one of these days. But in terms of communicating to clients, he actually paints these watercolors at the very beginning of the job, and it allows us to really hone in on what we're going to do in a particular space and for a particular client. And it's obviously a great communication tool, and we really design while this watercolor process is taking place. So we're gathering ideas and fabrics and plaster moldings and possibly even finding antiques and things right up front. And Nikki sort of, often working those into the watercolors very early on in the job. And I'm going to sort of go, I'm speaking quite broadly right now, I'm going to go through some more specific examples as we go along. But for example, this watercolor of a drawing room, it's a great, obviously, selling tool for a client, but for example, if he were to give this, having presented it to the client, then give it to the staff, we know exactly what we're looking for, so we can have our eyes open all the time. For example, a large pair of urns that we know that he wants to go on these pedestals in this drawing room. So it's a good way of being really focused on the job as opposed to letting what's out there steer us. And if we don't find what we're looking for, then of course we plan to make it. So some specific projects. This is an 18th century house. And these types of houses obviously are a gift in the sense that they really speak to you. And they tell you a lot of what they need, what the house needs, and what would suit the house. And this is the cover of the drawing room, which was obviously World of Interiors. But I'm going to show you a long shot later and just show you how absolutely huge this room is. And I think it's an example of how you can make really large spaces still incredibly cozy. Now that particular house, the first time Nicky saw it, and it was one of the first jobs I worked on with him, and it was a thrill in so many ways, but one of the exciting things was it really instantly reminded him of his childhood home, Great Hundredge Manor. And the watercolor here is one of his parents sitting in their sitting room in Great Hundredge Manor, which had famous, beautiful, beautiful specialist painting all throughout the house. And this sort of wacky wood grain was something that he decided he wanted to recreate in the sitting room at what is called Stanley House. And so when he developed the watercolor for that room, he drew on this childhood sort of memory, and this is what he created for that particular house. And this is what it ended up looking like. So as you can see, it really is quite, sometimes it's a very, very literal translation of what he watercolors and what we end up executing. The paneling was original till the building, but we added all of this specialist painting, we added, a bit of gilding. The fireplace mantle was original to the Georgian part of the building, so that was listed. But, something like the cabinets, we probably weren't going to find the perfect size, the perfect pair, and they actually house all sorts of hideous air conditioning equipment, so that would be the type of thing where we would have those made specifically to the project. But this, I think, also is slightly interesting because although we think so often in terms of symmetry, and I think people get a little caught up in symmetry and that things have to be symmetrical, and we've heard a lot about that that linear way of thinking. But if you actually notice, the two chairs in this room, one of them is actually quite a bit wider than the other, and it's a bit quirky. And Nicky loves sort of witty, quirky, unexpected little elements to happen, even accidents to happen in a room, because it gives it that, that unexpected, that human feeling, because we're not symmetrical, we're not completely linear, and I think when things are too polished, sometimes it just becomes slightly inhumane. So that's the before and after, and hopefully I think it's beautiful. Now in the ballroom, this was originally lived in by Lord Albert's secretary, and so the plaster casts that are all around the ceiling of the room are original casts of the Elgin marbles, and they were still in situ, and a pretty exciting find to work with. And this was Nicky's original concept for that room, and he painted these low painted bookcases, and always laughs that he happened to paint in this little propped up picture to the left with the chimney piece. And lo and behold, someone called us and said, actually, do you know that there's a watercolor of this room done in 18-something? So we managed to get our hands on it, and the client bought it. It was an exciting find. And this is the room as it was when Lord Elgin lived there. And lo and behold, low painted bookcases, busts all over the room, and Nicky just got a chill up his spine. I'm sorry the screen's so bad. When there was even a little tiny watercolor propped up on the fireplace mantle, just as he had drawn it. So the room had obviously spoken to him in depth, but when we got our hands on this, we were kind of taken by the coloring of the room. So although he had done a watercolor where the room was sort of heavenly blue, this sort of porphyry color was intriguing, and so we had another meeting with the client, and we talked about which way we might go, and we ended up doing sort of fabric schemes for both options because we were really torn. But we decided to go with the porphyry, and these walls are sort of stippled and lacquered like porphyry. And we also found out from the watercolor that there had been a frieze on the ceiling, which you can see now. We did scrapings, and we did find remnants of the frieze, and so we recreated it. And as you can see, it is quite a vast room, but this is the room that the family uses, really as their family room. So I think it's well, cozy as ballrooms go.